Although virtual reality has been a concept since the late 20th century, it never became the technology that we've imagined until 2013, the year that Oculus came out with a working development kit. 2 years later, virtual reality hit the market with a consumer version. Then again, at the time, VR was still a fledgling market with no powerhouse titles or brand names that were seen outside the medium. The only games, or experiences as they called it, were mere gimmicks and single scenes as opposed to titles that can stack up to video games that people play on the daily. That is, however, until 2019. Finally, virtual reality was starting to become more real. Both Oculus and Windows Mixed Reality were making more reasonably priced devices, and Valve Index made up for their asking price by implementing reliable finger tracking. And I haven't even mentioned the games that made VR so great. Since 2013, we've gotten comprehensive weapon simulators, music games with content to beat OS, music games with OS, and of course, the first new Half-Life game in 12 years. VR is finally on the menu, but make no mistake, this upcoming boom isn't only good for hardcore gamers. Thanks to the technology finally proving itself, more industries are dipping their toes in this once science fiction technology, including the anime industry. Enter Little Witch Academia, what I believe to be the flagship property of the industry veteran run Studio Trigger. I absolutely adored the show when I had my Netflix trial last year. Although the story's plot doesn't really matter in regards to the two games that were made for tie-in, I'll explain it briefly. It's like Harry Potter meets Kiki's Delivery Service, a whimsical coming-of-age story about a clumsy Japanese aspiring witch named Atsuko Kaguri, also known as Ako, and her various misadventures in the Luna Nova Witchcraft Academy. The VR game was originally set to be released this past summer, but the world sort of changed and, well, you know the scoop. Now we're getting it earlier next year. Well, actually, in a month, but it comes out for Oculus before Steam VR, so those who don't own Facebook's headset will see it later rather than sooner. I don't know how much has changed since I played it last year, but let me tell you about my first impressions. It was Friday, November 15th, the first day of Anime NYC 2019. I had time to kill because I was supposed to hold a photo shoot for one of my pen pals later that day. So I looked around the showroom and I found many booths reserved for VR games. One which took me by surprise. A demo for the Little Witch Academia game. I went straight to the queue. On the screen was the announcement trailer that you could already find on YouTube. At first glance, it was just an anime Superman 64. I would soon put this observation to the test. And here's a funny story. When I was called up, the booth tender asked who I was supposed to be dressed as. In my Constance Amelie von Brunchbank Albrechtsberger outfit. I couldn't blame him because I know that watching the source material isn't exactly necessary to tend a convention booth. Before the actual game would start, there were prompts to make sure I was using the controller correctly. The game only requires one wand controller, two of which should already come with any head-mounted device. The controls are what make this game unique, although it'll probably trip up a first-time player, and it has, in my case. What I know is that there's no button inputs. The controls are based on your posture, tracked via the distance between headset and controller. You play the game sitting down with your elbows on your knees. To accelerate, you lean forward. To brake, you lean back and away from the controller. To turn, you actually turn your body as well as the arms that hold the controller. But as soon as those menus passed, the actual demo started. In the opening menu, your controller appears as one of the show's forked wands. When I waved it, a green trail followed. It's pretty fun to pretend to have a magic wand, but that's obviously not the selling point of the game. To continue, I was prompted to press the trigger button, pun intended. As a humorous reference, they told me to press the trigger button, stylized font and all, which was pretty punny. I was in the woods that surround Luna Nova. when Ako peeked out of one of the trees, introducing me to herself and telling me that she does not know how to fly yet. Then she explains how witches of Luna Nova have broom racing contests, one of which was the focus of the third episode. After talking to Ako, I was spawned into the actual track. And thanks to my stance, I lifted straight into the sky, and it felt as if I was soaring and looking down onto the shrinking trees. Passing the rings, however, was more of a difficult task, since I didn't completely grasp the controls at the time. Basically, I spent most of the demo going forward in a straight line. Luckily, you can't exactly lose in this demonstration, and you don't get penalized for missing rings. I flew past the forested area and up a waterfall, clipping through that same waterfall. There was also a point where I was still for around 15 seconds, not realizing that I was sitting up. I went to mashing the buttons, almost trying to tell the tender that I was having difficulties until I leaned forward to see it work again. I know it's kind of painful to hear about these mishaps, but that was my experience. Now for impressions, will I buy it once it releases? Definitely. I made this video to share how much I really like this experience, and I hope that my controller illiteracy at the time doesn't put anyone off from considering this title. What I found to be the best thing about this is how it makes you feel. We've all tried to fly our mom's broom after reading Harry Potter, did we not? This is basically the childhood dream fulfilled, and with risking sounding like one of those reviewers that say a game makes you feel like a certain superhero, this game actually makes you feel like you're flying on a broom. When I started lifting up into the virtual air, it felt real enough that my fear of falling was kicking in. Of all my virtual reality experiences, there's not another title that I can name where the concept relates to flight. Mostly, the types of VR games on the market relate to either shooting or slicing. This is also an optimal title for people with little playing space, since you'll be in one spot for most of the time. Of course, this review may very well be outdated by the time the finished product comes out, so just take this as a first impression. They have a lot more in store, one of which I think will sell the game for those who've watched the show. A Kitsune race where you get to soar with the character of your choice. As the original release date passed, more information was added to the title's official site. What I initially thought was a tie-in by little more than name now has a story mode, which is a big plus for those who seek something more than a simple simulation. But for now, what's left is to wait and see how the shipped product fares.